Hello, everybody. We got a little Born This Way going on.
Is that what that was?
Yeah.
So, I don't know how to. Yeah. Well, I won't even try.
Anyway, I could have queued it up a little further in the song. It was in the slow part at the beginning. But hello, everybody. This is Two Queers in a Truck, and we have an extra rider with us this time.
Yeah.
A guest passenger.
That's right.
Full disclosure, which we'll introduce here in a moment, but it is the third Wednesday of the month. If you stayed with us through the first show, congratulations. You punched the ticket. My partner in crime with the other show and this show, Christian Cano. How are you?
Excellent. Ready to get going.
And you want to introduce our passenger real quick?
Yeah, we got a passenger all the way from New York City via Charlotte.
Hi, Tony.
Forman.
How are you?
Everybody, it's a pleasure to be here with Christian and Jenny.
That's right.
About this, and I wanted to see what the ride was all about. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
My name on this show is Lady Bless Your Heart.
Right. Yeah. It gets a little crazier on this show, just so you know, but that's okay.
That's right. All right. Sorry, Jen.
But anyway, we'll jump right into it. So
yep.
We break the segments down by topic, and I usually use a funny line to break up the segments. They're about 6 minutes long for the people that have not watched this show before. The first one's called Taking Voting Rights for Granted. So President Grant wrote a lot about voting rights and the federal role in that. In fact, in a plaque, he was a Republican from Ohio, and which ironically, some of the people that are fighting it in the Senate are Republicans from Ohio. And Grant was a big proponent of the 15th Amendment, actually, and the 15th Amendment allows the federal government to jump into elections. Before that, and before the Civil War, it was considered just a state's venue. And so 15th Amendment allowed for national changes to voting rights, voter protections, supposedly, theoretically, at that time, to prevent things like Jim Crow and segregation stuff, which obviously didn't take very well. So we had to pass other voting laws later on, as these Southerners schemed and plotted to take away voting rights from and disenfranchise people of color. So ironically, that was a Republican. So a lot of people, if you don't remember your history, President Grant was a Republican, back before they got cuckoo. And so one of the ironies is that that a Republican was so strongly about, the 15th Amendment and federal deal, but also you can't really see it.
I'm looking at the 15th Amendment on what we used to read on the show.
It up.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's so studious. Look at that. You got your reading glasses on and everything. But the irony of irony is that it was a Republican.
That's right.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
You can tell Tony's is an original alumnus of the coffee shop.
Exactly.
But anyway, the irony is that the people that push voting rights and desegregation of America and ending slavery, that party is now the one that's pushing against new Jim Crow #2 and anti-voting rights and anti-deal. What do you think about the hypocrisy and the irony of the modern Republican? And in about 2 minutes or less.
I can go first. I think it is. I'm so angry because it makes no logical sense, because as you have said before, Jenny, and everyone has said, what comes around goes around. And we're getting closer and closer to what comes around and goes around. You know what? I'm wondering if there's a certain part of our population that is very, is it apathetic? Apathetic is when you're not sympathetic, right? Or sympathetic? One of those terms are like that, because they know we're going to stick it to them just like they're sticking it to us. And so I wish that the people who are against this will realize, the shadier you are, the shadier people are going to want to be. So it's actually to your advantage to be humble and graceful during this time period. So I don't know.
And realistically, though, I mean, all the crazy white supremacist doom and gloom things about Obama when he got sworn in 2009, None of those came true. All those
Yeah.
urban myths about,
Mm-mm.
roundups and guns being taken, all the cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs type things that they said,
Well, remember Jenny,
never came true.
Jenny,
let's be
remember all the
realistic.
stuff we heard about equality marriage? You're going to be able to marry your dogs and your horses, and remember all
Right.
that stupid stuff. I mean, you're going to marry your kids. They're going to go out and they're going to do, it's going to destroy marriages, and it's like, I know,
I will
honey,
say, I will say,
your honey was
ironically,
destroyed because
those arguments came from people that go to family reunions to pick up women. We're family trees that go pretty much straight up and down with no branches.
Yeah.
The ones that do all this fear mongering.
yeah.
Oh, look at the source. Tony, you got something you'd like to say?
Look. I think that like I mentioned before, what's going on in America today. What's in the dark would come to the light. Like Christian said, all this stuff, it's going to blow up in their faces because those individuals, they don't know eventually, and they may take this January 6th commission committee to act. I just heard on CNN that they actually have phone conversations and emails and stuff from Trump's son and his girlfriend. So I'm hopeful that things are gonna turn. I hope that the Build Back Better bill is along with the Voters' Rights Act, because if that bill passes, the Republicans could kiss dirt.
Yeah, that's what they're afraid of. Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of money going around, a lot of grants. Things are going to change, and I'm
yeah.
So we're going to move on to the next topic, which is put me in, coach. And what this is talking about is Coach Saban, a national championship winning Coach Saban, is a lifelong friend of Senator Manchin's.
I saw that.
Recently, he wrote a very articulate and prolific letter urging Manchin to protect voting rights, and said it's good for the country, it's good for America, and implored him to change his stance on the filibuster, and that the filibuster is anti-democracy. And so I'm hoping that the weight and the gravity of Coach Saban and obviously their long-term friendship will sway Senator Manchin in a way that maybe his own constituents and human beings in this country can't, for whatever reason. What do y'all think about that? And what do you think about somebody that's technically not in politics influencing the senator for the right reasons?
But I think it's a good idea about that, Chris. I think it's a good idea. Somebody's got to put some fire underneath these two senators. I also seen on CNN, because while I'm doing the show, I have CNN on, and they just showed a bunch of celebrities and regular Americans trying to tell Sinema and Manchin to do the right thing, that it's anti-American not to pass the Voting Rights Act.
I agree. I mean, I'm kind of the same. I mean, I'm not only I'm trying not to get so upset that I don't want to say something like F Manchin, well, even though I've said it, but I don't want the misogyny doesn't want to come out and call the female senator something that should never be said. And I'm so upset about that. But at the same time, I just think it's so, the frustration is so, I'm trying to channel it into, because as a Cowboy fan, I have it's the same pain I had when we lost on Sunday is the same. I mean, you have to learn how to get over it, and you have to go, all right, what's the next step? What's the next move? How do we win this? How do we win the war? Lose the battle, win the war. And if we're going to lose these two, then we got to focus in 2022 about getting more senators so we don't have to worry about him anymore. And so
the big difference to jump in is that Cowboys fans should be used to losing and choking in the playoffs. Very important point.
Whatever.
Second of all, we don't want to get accustomed to losing.
Yeah.
We just won big in 2020.
That's right.
So I think for one thing, Biden and Harris are both behind the scenes have started really working on the Republican senators.
Yeah.
And I do believe what at the end of the day in 2022 is going to be a long year for Manchin and Sinema. And I believe what's going to happen is that they're going to recruit enough Republican senators that either aren't running for re-election. There's about 10 Republicans, I believe, aren't running for re-election in 2022.
Okay.
And also ones that just go, they don't really like me anyway, so screw it.
Yeah.
And, you know, like a Mitt Romney that's on the outside looking in, and several the lady from Maine, and I can't remember her name.
Yeah, Susan Collins.
Yeah, Susan Collins has a history of bucking the system. She's kind of the Liz Cheney of the Senate. And, you know, there's enough wild cards in the Senate that I do believe that you really only need about 1 out of every 5 to make a big difference. And also teach Manchin and Sinema, listen, go, if you won't vote with us, you can kick rocks. We'll primary you, and then that's primary. And we'll make a super majority with or without you. Yeah. And we'll grease the right palms, we'll work the system, we'll work, you know, compromise moves us along. And Biden's a pretty good negotiator. He didn't make it into the Senate for 30 years because he was a complete and utter idiot. And he's a really good negotiator too. They both have phenomenal Senate experience, and they're both pretty friggin' brilliant. Don't be surprised if we start seeing some backdoor deals to isolate those two fools in our party, and also help these more independent Republicans, these more critical thinking ones, because there are some Republicans that can't think themselves, and especially in the Senate, and they've got things they want to gain too. And so,
good point.
Give and take. So that would be my play if I was the president. Which, you know, when I take over the planet, I'll be the empress. You know, and
that's right.
I won't have to worry about a Senate. You know, and I'll put a desk star in, and it'll be all good. Don't worry about it. We'll have pride every week. But anyway, but you know, I think Tony, you had a point or something you wanted to jump in and say.
No. No,
he said no.
No, I'm quite there with you. I see it the same way. I mean, we have to be practical about this. Malcolm X said you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. And if you're not part of the solution, then you are the problem. I think we need to get, instead of, I work from a different perspective. It's a whole lot. When I have a challenge, head on. Because to every action, there's a reaction. So if there's all these different voting restrictions upon poor people, then let's make sure that all those 18-year-olds get registered. Let's go out. Let's educate them. Let's make sure that everybody's voting applications are correct. Let's look them over, because what's got them scared is since Obama, there's been an escalation exponentially for voters of color. Now, when I was growing up, the thing on the street was, I'm not voting. And it was a myth that was put up upon, a curse that was put up upon the Black community, with it had them disbelieving the process. The problem is the Constitution or the land. Do not know what the law of the land is about, and if you're not working within the confines of the Constitution, you're lost, man.
Well, Yeah, I was going to say, Jenny has said that on a regular show and on this show as well, that these things backfire because trying to restrict votes is not just restricting Black and brown votes, you're also restricting poor white people's votes. And that's the base of Trump. And and quite honestly, it just means, and we joked about this, I think a couple of shows back, and I joked about it, Latinos, Latinx, Hispanics, whatever you want to call them, they have no problem waiting in lines. We have waited in lines our entire life. As a matter of fact, what was the joke I said, or that we used, that if there's a line, we think, oh, there must be something good. What's the line about? We don't even know what the line is. We just wait in line. And so where white people go, there's a line, I'll come back.
Be in San Antonio at Easter time in an outlet mall, you'll never see longer lines every week because all the people from northern Mexico come over the border to shop. And you'll see tons of SUVs with Mexico license plates.
Yep. That's
and
true.
For 2 weeks during Easter time, they have huge school breaks and they spend tons of money in the greater San Marcos area. But anyway, next topic. It's called That's What She Said. So Matt Air Minor Gates' ex-girlfriend testified in a private tape session about his sweet tooth for younger women below 18. And it was such a good, compelling testimony. She got complete and utter immunity for her testimony. And his partner in crime that helped recruit the 17-year-old girl that got to go on the little plane ride, that's why I call it airliner, has also already testified it and done a plea bargain deal. So they're slowly circling the wagons on Mr. Gates, Representative Gates. And usually, and I'm copying a story that I read that he was a former prosecutor for the state of New York, or assistant prosecutor. And he said, usually when they give a key witness full immunity for their testimony, means whatever she's got is pretty compelling. The charges are coming. And so Representative Gates may not be able to buy his way out of this way.
So shouldn't be the first warning for anyone is anytime someone says your former boyfriend or your former girlfriend is testifying against you, you need to.
It's time to find countries with no extradition treaties.
Exactly. That should be the first. Oh, shoot.
Hello, Rich Daddy. I need to go ahead and get a one-way plane ticket to.
Oh, yeah.
Because I do believe in I've never been in prison, but I do believe they don't treat child molesters like allegedly Matt Gates is very well in prison. Our dance card might be full.
And they don't treat pretty white boys very well in prison.
And he is a well manicured man. He is a pretty man.
Go ahead, Tony.
When he gets to jail, they look for him on the gauntlet.
they just, I don't. Anyway, that was an easy one.
It was like a T-ball.
That's right.
You look at this new generation of Congress people, especially in the House of Representatives, the FGPs, the Matt Gates, the Bobberts, the amosexuals, as I call them, that are gun nuts and all that. And this loud, obnoxious, as Christian likes to say, they're almost like the drunk girl at the bar. They're just up on the bar, swinging their hands in the air, just making a fool out of themselves. But slowly but surely, they're eliminating themselves.
Little by little, the pecs are coming down.
Oh yeah,
that's true.
And you got to figure somewhere AOC is sitting there going, they've been giving me crap for a couple years, but boy,
Isn't that what I said, Jenny? That all the focus was on ALC and the squad, and remember all before, and thank goodness now it's like ALC and the squad look actually kind of normal, even to the people who didn't used to like them. Now it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Matt Gates, or the crazy. We thought.
Well, they always were. I know
that.
That just to correct what you said,
Yeah,
AOC and the whole, as Robert called them, the Jihad
Yeah.
Squad,
yeah.
always
which is
were
crazy.
normal. They
Yeah.
were fighting for kooky radical things like clean air and clean water, helping kids out of poverty, just really extremist, stuff like helping Americans first. I don't know. That's just seems so far-fetched and extremist that we would actually help our neighbors. I mean, that's just so cuckoo.
Yeah.
It's just, we much rather just have tons of guns and COVID and fly around in our private jets. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just unhinged.
Are you crazy? No.
Yeah, they're I just, anyway, I don't know. I like to watch what Marjorie Taylor Greene says, but at the same time, I try not to watch it because I don't want to give it the clicks that it has. But sometimes you have to watch it. And every time I read stuff that what she said on Martin Luther King Day about white people are the new, the discriminated against, and she's a woman of God, and this, and I'm like, well, I'm like, is this the same Marjorie Taylor Greene that was trading sex partners with her husband and stuff like that? So I don't know what God she's a freaky freak. And so for her to say, I'm a woman of God, I guess I'm a woman of God too.
Well, typically anybody that has to scream that they're a woman of God and has to articulate it that way typically is not.
Exactly. That's right. Sorry.
Anybody that screams at a young person like
the way she
the
did
Parkland survivor and said that it was fake, I got nothing for them. But we are on to our next topic. The train keeps moving along. Out of the mouth of babes. This last week, Republican Representative Crenshaw from Texas has been going on a book tour because he has a book coming out called Fortitude.
Okay.
Well, he was doing I guess basically a book signing or a deal with one of the Tea Party groups there in the state of Texas. It was a live event, an in-person event, and there's a 10-year-old that's quoted in the book that says that a lot of she didn't say Republicans, but conservatives tend to be hypocrites, and they don't really follow the people they say they idealize, like Reagan or Jesus or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like their words and their actions don't meet up. And she's a 10-year-old was very incredulous about. Well, Crenshaw thought he would clap back on that quote that's in his book and call out a 10-year-old girl, and went on to say, well, nobody should question my Christianity or my faith. Well, that drew a whole lot of boos, actually, amongst conservatives, and they were verbally upset and shouting at him that he shouldn't be clapping back at a 10-year-old.
Oh, wow.
And so Mr. Big and Tough trying to, make fun of a 10-year-old that's not there, that wasn't at the deal, that quoted in his book. I was like, hey, you put her in the book. So you're kind of an idiot for doing that. And B, why would you shout down a 10-year-old? Mr. Big Tough, former military, lost his eye in combat or whatever. Probably lost, opening a can of beans or something. But anyway, you never know with those guys. But it just seems very bizarre. But it just seems like there's certain pockets of conservatives and Republicans that are starting to get publicly fed up with the kookier side of the ledger. What do you guys think? Do you think that there is a moderate Republican? Does the moderate Republican still exist? And do you think that there is enough common sense in that group to start reining in some of the extremists like Crenshaw or Bobbert or any of those? What's y'all's take?
I mean, we've talked about this over the last 2 years, or at least since, not even more longer than that, since Trump was elected. Where are they? Where are they? Why aren't they saying anything? Why aren't they saying anything? We know they all live around Barbara, and even some around me and some around you and all of us here in Charlotte. And we keep thinking, why aren't they speaking up? Why aren't they speaking up? They're now starting to speak up and say things, because this is the same guy that was fighting with Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So they're now starting to say things, and Jenny, the Empress of the World's prediction that the only people that can beat Republicans are other Republicans is coming true, that their worst enemy is themselves. The problem is do we forgive them for being quiet for so long?
No,
I think, I think that's what's gonna, that's the question. The question is, now that they start to speak up, are we gonna start to say, where were you all this time? We've been fighting this battle for 5 years. And now you wanna say this? Why we've had people die, we've had all this kind of stuff. And so, you know, I don't think they're heroes for doing it, but I also, in the back, I also sit back and go, because they're gonna have at it. And that's why I don't think they're going to have this big tsunami in 2022, because they are going to kill each other and kill each other and kill each other before this election. And they're going to be, some of them, they're going to be so angry at each other. They hate Ted Cruz. They hate Ted Cruz. That's all I'm going to say. All right. Tony.
I agree, Cano. And it's coming little by little. If you look at it, they're gonna talk about cancel culture. Go to cancel.
Yeah. They're gonna try to cancel each other.
Show you why. They say forgive and forget. I may forgive, but I couldn't forget. This so much damage that's been done since 2020. A lot of people have died. And when during the second impeachment, why didn't they just move so that he won't be able to run again? Won't be able to do nothing. And all had to do with money.
Yeah.
Basically, all money. I mean, in his family alone, his daughter had like 7 different trademarks in China.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when you look at what he did with Putin, what he did before the American people, and they followed. The Republicans were behind him, going, "Go ahead, sir. Go ahead." You know what I'm saying? So no, I think we need to remember those that could have made it. As the Congresswoman always said, "Speak up and speak out."
Yeah.
Speak up and speak out. Then you're complicit. You know you're.
That's it. Jen,
Well,
Jen's
just
like,
in time too, because we got the next
excellent.
segment. So the next one's "It's Inconceivable," which is also a line from The Princess Bride when the Sicilian couldn't figure out why the Dread Pirate Roberts was catching up to him. He would say "inconceivable, inconceivable," and finally Fenwick goes, "I don't think you know what that word actually means."
No, and also there's a line that says, "Have fun storming the castle."
Yes,
I don't know.
yes,
That's the only line I know from Princess Bride. Okay, so go ahead.
So anyway, Christian Cano on Monday had done several, or over the weekend as well, had done several public, alliances and saying, how she supported Dr. King and Dr. voting rights and all this. Well, a lot of the internet people made some very clever memes showing a clip of Dr. King talking about the white moderate, but also with her picture, split screen in it, pointing out that she essentially is what he was talking about, which is the white moderate crushing voter rights, being the enabler of the other side of the ledger that doesn't want voting rights for all. But it was very funny on Instagram. About every 5th thing that I could see as I was power scrolling on Monday, looking for different articles about Dr. King and MLK Day, it was just frying her. And so, which on the way in, I don't even know why she bothered. It just seemed like she set herself up like a golf ball on a tee, which I don't think she is the sharpest tool in the shed. But B, who is she trying to convince? Because because all these sites were like the Democrats, Indivisible. These are all Democratic Party outlets, pro-Democratic Party outlets that were all basically rickrolling her. And so it's kind of hilarious. It wasn't Republican, it wasn't conservative sites that were doing this. They weren't talking. But don't you think at some point, some of her handlers and managers would just go, "We just kind of need you to lay low. This isn't the holiday for you, girl.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like if I was your manager, your campaign manager, and your chief of staff, Christian, say you were in Congress and you were saying something, you know, maybe on a women's rights issue or something like that.
Sure.
Something, you know, with your history of maybe a little bit of chauvinism and stuff like that, I'd be saying, maybe this is the holiday we sit out. Maybe we lay low on this way.
But don't you think, Jenny? Don't you? What you said is exactly correct. It shows there has to be a lot of disconnect psychologically and aware of the candidate and the person, because I will give Republicans who are like real Republicans true credit for not saying a word on Labor Day. They never say anything on Labor Day, but you hear from them Memorial Day and Veterans Day, but they never say anything about Labor Day because they were against unions. But the ones that were cuckoo on Martin Luther King were Marjorie Taylor Greene, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio. They're so delusional and disconnected. They don't realize this is not the day for you to shut up, or this is the day for you to shut up. This is not the day for you to, they just have to say something. And that's what's going to eventually will get them in trouble, is they can't not say something.
But don't you expect you expect that from conservatives? You expect diarrhea.
That's what I'm saying.
Like
she
they're
doesn't
the
get
people
it.
that aren't invited to the party but show up anyway in a canary yellow Speedo and a half shirt and are super inappropriate, but you expect it from them.
But
somebody on your team that's really a bench warmer, you just kind of like, hey, you need to ride the pine on this one. You're not a starter, just be quiet.
But that's what you're saying. Is what you're saying is she and her staff, because someone has to stop her, or they don't have the ability. There's something dysfunctional. Right. She doesn't even know that the Democrats, her own party, hates her, and so she doesn't.
Oh no, I think she knows it by now.
But she's so, something's not there that she's coming to the party. And she's probably still coming to the party, and people are laughing at her going, what's this? What's she doing at the party? And she's going, oh, they like me. I'm at the party, you know? And so there's something wrong.
A salad field. They really like me.
So Tony, what do you think, Tony?
What's wrong with that whole picture? And I think that's wrong with what's wrong with part of America. People get to doing things that a large segment of America is not in accordance with.
Yeah.
And it becomes not America, but the party.
Yeah.
I believe that when the parties were set up, they were set up as checks and balances. Like, you know, and people have gotten away from that. Then comes a holiday like Martin Luther King's birthday, and all of a sudden they found a little bit of consciousness back here, and they want to recognize, did you forget all the crap you talked?
Exactly.
And now you expect Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
That's a greatest name like that.
Yeah.
And what has always been the case with Black America, and that's one of the things I call them Negropeans, is that Black Americans are too damn forgiving. And that's a fact.
Yeah.
Too damn forgiving. It's got to the point now that I work in an after-school program, and you know, I asked the kids there about some of our past leaders, and you know, a lot of them don't even know who Martin Luther King is. They don't know who Malcolm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's sad. Why?
Yeah.
It's super sad.
Give me a second.
I do have to cut you off because we got to go to the next segment.
Yep.
So the next one's called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Miss Rhoda. So the good,
Corona,
COVID.
The bear?
good is that the reports from South Africa show that Omicron, which is pretty much the dominant variant out there today, in South Africa, it's cycling very short. It's shorter than normal. So the half-life of it is way shorter than Delta was when Delta swept through South Africa. Measurable so. So that's the good. The bad is that we're still getting almost 800,000 positive tests a day here in the United States. The ugly, and this is a very scary stat. At this point today, we have 154,000 people in hospitals, but out of only 790,000 beds, staffed beds. That's all we have. That's our max capacity, and it's probably a little lower than that since we've had a lot of attrition in the medical industry, including death. The average during the pandemic, pre-Omicron, averaged about 60,000 people at any one time in the hospitals. So we're literally double what we were on average. Now, we had peaks and valleys and all that. It fluctuated between 60 and 90, but we've never had 154. They also are expecting that we're going to add 23,000 to 33,000 people a week to the hospitals for the next 4 to 5 weeks, putting the capacity over 200,000 possibly by the end of February, which is that last step right before death. And so we're talking about a tremendous amount of hospitalization to an already exhausted industry. Like you've got people leaving the medical industry. You have people, doctors and nurses and staff dying every day. I think we've lost over 7,000 medical workers of some type have died because of COVID. And so, I mean, it's kind of a downer, but we're going to have an upper on the last topic, fairly positive. But what is y'all's take on the devastation of this current variant? And is there anything positive to take away from Omicron and what's going on right now?
You want to go first, Tony?
What was the question? I'm sorry about that. I had a call.
How do you feel about
about the current state of the pandemic? Is there any positive takes? Is there anything that you see that may be good, or anything that that we can take away from this? Is there anything you want to say about it?
Well, I think people are taking this even worse than what they took with COVID. They're looking at it like, oh, it doesn't really affect you the same way, and they're taking it lightly. Yet others are exponentially growing. It's a good thing that if Biden had more support from the other side, I think we would have more testing, more. What he just did with those street tests, I think that's a wonderful idea. When I was in New York this past week, there were lines, my God. They wanted to get tested because they've been out and they've been in certain areas that were kind of crowded, and they wanted to get tested and they couldn't. I mean, the line, with all that cold, the line was long still, so I guess that's the good part, and the bad part is just the way people are.
I mean, I'm 2022. I continue to say, get vaccinated, get booster shots, protect yourself, protect your family. So when you do catch the Omicron, because you're very likely going to get it unless you never go outside, and even if you mask up, I mean, it's always possible. At least you're not going to be going to the hospital, very unlikely, and you're going to survive it. And so that's the good news. So I'm confident in that. Those who continue to not get vaccinated, thoughts and prayers, because what we know is that the thing that you're talking about, Jenny, I saw that, I think it was today, that it talked about a lot of these countries have a lower, their median age is lower, it's younger. Our median age is higher, And as a result of that, we may have disproportionately higher deaths of Omicron than they will have, because the unvaccinated people may be the older ones may have more serious effects. And so, you know what?
Couple quick notes with Omicron,
Sure.
at least in the
Yep.
American stats. One, hospitalization of people under 18 is up between 400% and 500%, especially
Wow.
in most affected states.
Mhm.
Omicron, because it's so contagious, spreads easier in schools.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, wow.
and we all know how
Yeah.
social kids are, though, they're
Yeah.
out, they're kids. And
Yeah.
even with masks on and everything else, which incidentally, 8 superintendents of schools in North Texas have actually
Are
resigned,
leaving. I
are
saw it.
leaving or departing or ending their
Yeah.
contract, leaving at the end of their contracts. But 8 of them, including Dallas ID, which is one of the biggest school districts in the United States. And I think there's a lot of frustration. Now, we do have to move on to the next subject,
Yep.
which is a kind of a happy note, but also a sad note too. 100 years wasn't enough. So we had Betty White pass away, on New Year's Eve of this last year. And but they celebrated her birthday, her heavenly birthday, this week. She would have been 100 this week. She missed it by about 2.5 weeks. Betty White exemplified what a person should be. I think she lived one of the most idyllic lives. She was publicly anti-racist when it was not popular in white America to be publicly anti-racist. She stood against any kind of bigotry, homophobia, transphobia, racism, sexism. I even addressed it on her most famous show, which of course was the Golden Girls. They tackled some of the most prolific subjects of the day there, predominantly in the 1990s. I miss her. I miss that presence. But it also proves that, people say, well, they should get a free pass because they're older. And that generation didn't know better. She was born in 1921, folks. So she grew up, she was born before the Great Depression, born before World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Nixon, Reagan. So it's proof positive that there are people that just have an open heart, that just believe that a human's a human, that there is no barrier between us except these imagined cuckoo barriers to promote somebody else's power. And just as gross as any bigot would be, she's on the other end of the spectrum. And so I wish her well, rest in power. I do believe that humankind can be kind. I think when I said it was a matter of heart, to bring this whole topic full circle, is that I think over time, if we do it right and we change hearts and minds, we don't have to change every law, but we have to begin with the hard subjects, as Tony says. We got to have some hard discussions. We got to have some, come to Buddha, come to Jesus, come to all the meetings. We got to talk about some of the things that we don't like talking about, especially in white America, especially in the white South. I had a lot of family members that didn't ever want to talk about the hard subjects of racism and hate and all that, because our family just doesn't talk about that. But sooner or later, we're going to have a great American intervention, or we're going to have a great American divorce. And I hope the first one happens. I hope that we sit down with ourselves and our leaders and our community neighbors and say, you can't be racist. Just sit over there and and be quiet. And we just don't need to hear from you anymore. It's the 21st century. We need to move on. The majority of us don't think that way. We think about the 81 million people that voted for Biden in the middle of a pandemic. That was the bulk of the vote, that he won on a landslide. And those people believed in a greater truth, but they also were voting against tyranny. They were voting against hate and incompetence, and said, Biden's not perfect, but he is progress. He's on the better side of the ledger, and cooler heads prevailed then. And I think they always have.
I mean, I agree with you, Jenny, and that was a very good, thank you for giving that about Betty White. One of the reasons I think that I'm not nervous or scared about the future, I know we've talked about this before and I keep repeating it, is because I know there are more of us, and I don't mean us as in black, brown, gay, whatever. There are more good people than there are bad people. And I agree. In about 5-10 years, I strongly believe that as we go to our family reunions and we go to those events, there are more of us that are sick and tired of these idiots, these buffoons, and these morons, that we start to get back to going, crazy Uncle Joe, shut the heck up and go eat outside. You know, I mean, we just, and I do think that we're giving them their 15 minutes of the drunk girl at the bar. We give her time to jump up and say, this, and then eventually someone knocks her out. Some other girl knocks her out, and she gets thrown out the bar.
Right.
The same, and the same thing. And there's always a loudmouth sports bar football fan who says, "Oh," and eventually someone knocks him out, and he gets thrown out of the bar. And so I that's a terrible metaphor, but I really think that we are going to be at that point, and that people are watching us, influencers, and they are, if they watch us and they watch Marjorie Taylor Greene, we are more likely to win their hearts than Marjorie Taylor Greene, especially the young people. When young people are watching us and we're saying, we want you to be treated with respect and dignity, and then they have someone else going, so-and-so's this. When they get of age, voting age, they're more likely to say, I want to follow Jenny rather than Marjorie Taylor Greene. And that's why we have to continue.
And I think that's why an AOC that's very young herself, resonates so well. And the other ones too, Jay Powell and all the other, they're typically those are very young women that are serving in the House of Representatives. Mm-hmm. They're also very diverse. They're also very articulate, but they're also speaking to the causes that our younger Americans, our millennials and our baby Z's are going, theoretically, we're supposed to build this planet a lot longer than you Generation Xers and the baby boomers. We want it fixed. We're done with the think about think about it, Jenny. We want to see basically they're saying we want to see solutions, or solution driven, very practical to younger generations. And I think they're getting to the point where that's why they voted for Biden, because they're going, we had 4 years of a buffoon that only gave tax rich, the super rich, but didn't talk about student loans. We saw 4 years of this clown show culminate in basically a death cult. You know, COVID doesn't exist. It's just the Chinese flu. It's no big deal. And they're looking at this going, is this guy a friggin' idiot? And I think at some point, no matter who you are, and you're even seeing it in the Republican Party with Liz Cheney and even her dad, you know, they went to that January 6th thing, and even former Vice President Cheney, that, you know, basically was Dr. Evil for 8 years. But don't you think, hey, we need to cut this out, you know. But
Jenny, if you're a young person, let's say you're 16, 17, 18 years old, all right? I don't care where you grew up or where you are. And you have to compare the squad, if that's what they name them,
right?
AOC, all of the wonderful, brilliant young ladies, women of color, who they call the squad, the 4 ladies, maybe 5 now. And then you have to compare the trash squad, the other people, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Madison Cawthorn, the woman from Colorado. Who are you going to put what group do you want to hang around with, or what group do you think are going to take you further? It's not going to be the trash squad. And so, Madison Cawthorn may be the youngest person serving in Congress, but are very few people who look at him and go, that's a bright boy.
You know what?
Go ahead, Tony.
Jenny, you were speaking about something, and you alluded to it also, Cano. A lot of us don't watch the younger generation, and the fact that, and on one hand, the rap music is, it's not music that everybody goes for, but it speaks to young people, and it's unifying a lot of the young people. People are waking up. The younger people are waking up to the reality that what's been going on in America is not part of it's not what they want. I mean, look at the marches. Look at all those young people walking together and giving each other water and hugging. You got to look at those things so that you can visualize what our future will look like.
Exactly.
What it is today is not what it's like. I mean, the word revolution, people use the word revolution, but they don't know what revolution is.
Yeah.
It has to do with change. And it started by the youth. It started because they're in the process of learning and they see those things that are changing. There's grown people that don't want to lock out. So there is a trend out there with this. Now, in terms of equality and all that, I don't think we're going to get there quite yet, but the harmony is has to be.
Well, I completely agree with your saying, and we saw this because Christian and I went to 3 different marches last year. And we saw a tremendous amount of young people, white, brown, black. I mean, very intersectional, very youth. We saw a lot of young, single white guys there that normally, there's a very few of those that ever attend those. At least back when I was younger, they usually were drugged there by their girlfriends. But we saw a tremendous amount of tuned in young white male. And the reason I point that out is that I think the value system of a generation that is grown up in a post 9/11 or 9/11 happened when they were super young, a internet age, an age of reason, a age of instant research, because back when we were young, our internet was encyclopedias and the libraries and stuff like that. Like we couldn't just Google something. And I think it's given them reasoning and logic skills to where they go, well, that doesn't sound right. I'm just going to Google it. And they're going to come back and go, you're full of crap. And I think there is such a transparency and such powerful tools out there that I believe that these young people have just basically said, because I think it not only was it a revolutionary thing last year, but I also think it was a revolutionary that was based on technology. And we saw people using the TikTok and the Instagrams and the Facebook Lives and all these tools and Snapchat and did a tremendous amount of communication. And I think that's going to be a baseline for those generations as they become the voting bloc of majority, but also become the taxpayers too, and the foundation for our country as we age out, as we either die of COVID or just we're just not plugged in. It's not our time anymore.
I was wondering, Jenny, you just came. I know we're way over, way out of time, but we need to do a show on the regular show on Coffee and Producing about social media. Because it depends on who you ask. It's like a generational thing. If you're 55 or older, you think social media has been the worst thing in the world for democracy and is the single most reason why we have dysfunction. If you're younger, you think social media is the ability to give you a voice and the ability to make you equal. It depends on who you are. And like for me, I understand how social media can be bad, but it does so much more good There's no way I could tell people to get a test in seconds without posting it on social media.
Right.
There's no way that I can tell someone this idiot said this on this show tonight without showing a clip of that person instantly. And people, back in the day, we'd have to hear from it in a newspaper and the National Enquirer. We'd have to read about Trump grabbing someone's vagina in the National Enquirer. Today, we will know that the next day. And so,
but the next hour, I mean, the Billy Bush,
exactly.
video slip. I don't even know what you would even call that, a faux pas where he recorded Trump and then surfaced, which I thought was just surreal.
So had we had social media when that happened, Trump wouldn't have been able to run for president. He would have been canceled way back then. So anyway, we need to do a show on that, Coffee and Producing. So
absolutely. We are up against the time. In fact, we're about 10, 11 minutes over our normal promise time. And so I appreciate you, Christian, and Tony, our guest writer.
Tony survived. Tony survived it.
As I call the Thunderdome of our two shows.
And it wasn't that bad. We didn't throw any shade.
No, and not on you, Tony. You're a guest.
That's right.
Like we treat our guests right. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for continuing to watch both of our shows, and we'll see you next week.
Any music?
Oh yeah, I should play some little bit of music.
Okay, I got to do my music. I can't hear yours. Bye, y'all.
Bye.